The meeting with El Shaddai, you ask? How did it go? I hardly know what to think myself. It's crazy. I mean, I'm so confused about what has happened over the course of the sun. I thought for sure she'd be mad at me. Instead, I hardly know what to think. Jacob, the dream call, I've never had a night like that. Have you paid any attention to my guy, Jacob? Now, it's hard to make this long story short, but here it is. He is a piece of work. He's the one who stole the blessing from his brother. Yeah, you heard about that? That's my guy. I don't think there's been such sibling strife since Cain and Abel. Jacob and his brother Esau were always at each other. Now, some like to blame their mother for the whole mess, but there really is enough blame to go around. Once Esau came back from a hunt. He was practically starving, and Jacob cooked this delicious stew and put it in front of him and said he wouldn't share unless Esau admitted that Jacob, was his father's favorite. Now, it is true that his mother pulled that trick with the goat skins. You know, Esau was the hairy one, so she attached the goat skins to the back of his hands and then had him go into his father, who was practically blind by then. And so Jacob got the blessing that was due for the oldest brother. His father refused to give 2 blessings. So you can see why Esau was pretty mad at him and why Jacob could not stay in his home country after that. His mother packed him off to her brother, his uncle, Laban. Now, I can't tell you if that was to save Jacob or to punish him, because Laban was cut from the same conniving cloth. And when Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, Laban made him work for 7 years for her and then switched sisters on the very day of the wedding. Laban made him work another 7 years to marry the one he was in love with in the first place. Now, things were quiet for a few years after that, but then Laban's sons found out that Jacob was using some interesting animal husbandry techniques to swindle their father out of some of the livestock. So they were fit to be tied. It was time for Jacob to go. So Jacob packed up his tents, took his wives and the workers and the servants and the sheep, and he began his journey home. As he neared his homeland, he started to get this kind of guilty conscience. He thought it was best to test the waters, to test out Esau and see if there was still any animosity there. So he sent a messenger over to his brother to announce that he would be coming back to his home country. Word came back that Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. 400! Anyone would suspect it was going to be a fight. Jacob divided his clan, figuring that if one half got attacked, the other half would survive. And he sent them in 2 different directions across the Jabbok River. And then he crossed the river himself. You know the place where the river is deep and where it cuts through the mountains of Gilead. All alone in the fold of the hills, among the poplar and tamarack trees, he made to spend the night. And I gotta tell you, I half expected that there would be no dream summons that night. His being so agitated and restless and therefore not really falling to sleep, but eventually, the darkest part of the night, he did fall asleep, and I was summoned. I've never had a summons like it. Jacob moved in his sleep with all the vigor of his daytime physicality. With fierce force, he immediately grabbed me, and he came at my lower body, and I instinctively responded with a whizzer, and then I tipped him off balance, but he countered with a double leg snatch. And so it went on for hours, his attempting to dominate me, and me doing my very best to counter and simply stay in this battle. Finally, he had me pinned, and I thought for sure he would strangle me as he breathed into my face. So I used holy touch on the hollow of his thigh, and I put his hip out of joint. He was in excruciating pain, but even then, he would not let me go. It was amazing. He just held on. Instead, this is so strange. Instead, as he held fast, he actually demanded a blessing. Yeah, I'm telling you, Jacob refused to let go of me until I would give him a blessing. And I refused to give him one. Now, I know that El Shaddai would be furious, but what can I say? I was pretty agitated after all that wrestling. And besides, I decided I did not want to bless him. He was a nasty man. He already had a blessing that did not belong to him and many flocks beside, and I just didn't think he deserved it. So I refused, and he refused to let me go. So there we were, pinned, his leg disjointed, even as the first light was leaking over the horizon. So, in my desperation, I used the renaming tool. I gave him the name Israel, saying, "You have strived with God, and you have prevailed." You have strived, by the way, also with your God and your brother and your father and your uncles and even the angels, and you, God's knees, you have prevailed. And then he finally loosened his grip and let me go. He said to me quietly, "Tell me your name." And so I told him. I was exhausted by then. So I just told him the holy angel name, Baruck Adonai, blessed of God. But the narcissistic swindler heard it as if I was blessing him, as if he was the one blessed of God. He thought our name was his blessing. And then the sun summoned him to wakefulness, and I was on my way. As I splintered light into light, I heard him naming the place of our strife, there by the river, there where we wrestled Peniel, the face of God. "For I have seen the face of God," he said. Now, I don't know how the heck he got that out of what we were up to, because I was there and I know that's not how it went down. Well, then you can see that I fully expected the wrath from I am that I am, El Shaddai, and I started apologizing as soon as I was fully in her presence. "I didn't show him your face," I began my defense. "I really didn't." But even then, she was reaching out to hold me in her complete gloaming embrace. She hugged me and hummed me and sang me back into full power. It was amazing. And she complimented me for the brilliant dream encounter. "The brilliant dream encounter?" I asked, quite unsure. "You're not angry with me that I withheld the blessing?" I asked. "That I told him the holy angel name?" I asked. She laughed. She said I was confused about what was a blessing, what it actually was. She said, blessing is not a bomb or a reward, Baruch Adonai. Blessing is not about making that which is difficult easy, that which is messy clean, that which is desperate promising, that which is unholy new. Blessing is not reserved just for the holy or saved for the sacred. Blessing is not even a prize for the good and a reward for the righteous. Don't you see, Baruch Adonai? Jacob has struggled all his life to get a blessing. And you, Baruch Adonai, have given him the gift of being blessed. I'm sorry, I said. I'm not sure I understand. You know that I'm the reason that he's limping around today. Yes, the hip thing, said El Shaddai. I loved the hip thing. Wait, I said. I didn't bless him. I made him limp, and I renamed him. And you're okay with all that? The naming, said El Shaddai. That was really wonderful. Yes, lovely. He struggled with God. You gave him the precious gift of knowing himself. And that is a blessing. That is what really human beings need. Human beings need to know the truth about who they are. And with that, she dismissed me. I confess, I am still stunned and wondering about what happened. I can't make sense of it except for this. Angels may be named blessed of God, but humans can be too. They can be blessed of God if they can see themselves clearly, and if they somehow see God, something beyond themselves, if they see El Shaddai in their own blessings.